r/NoStupidQuestions, are planes statistically safer than cars simply because there are far more cars driving in the world than there are planes? A lot of factors go into it. Total annual deaths from accidents, miles traveled per accident, number of accidents, likelihood of impacting something that might cause an accident, average skill of operator all play a part, and that's just what comes to mind off the top of my head. If you want to reduce it to the simplest idea, when was the last time you heard about a head-on collision between two aircraft, or an aircraft losing control and hitting a tree? Deleted. I just look at this way, if you open the Flight Radar 24 app, you can see hundreds if not thousands of planes flying around 24/7. When there is an accident of an airliner where people die, it's major news worldwide, and I haven't seen an accident where deaths have been involved since the 737 MAX scandal, which was years ago. So yes, commercial planes are really safe and under tight scrutiny from authorities. There have been 7 accidents with a death toll of at least 50 since the MAX 8 crashes. Countless more with a smaller death toll. When you hear statistically, you're not dealing with raw numbers. You're dealing with a probability. It's like how if I say that statistically, a 6 is more common on a pair of 6-sided than it is in a pair of 20-sided dice, I don't have to question which of these dice are thrown more often. Any idiot can get a driver's license. You have to jump through more hoops before you can legally pilot a plane. So technically it is because there are way more cars, not just the few best drivers with an external control system to keep them on non-intersecting paths. On US airlines, 1 person has died as a result of an accident, and that was an engine failure on Southwest, since the February 2009 Colgan Air crash. Meanwhile 30,000 to 40,000 people die each year on the roads and nobody bats an eye. The statistics show that per trip and per mile there are fewer aviation deaths than other modes. And even when you include non-US airlines flights, it's really only Asiana Airlines 214 that has had fatalities on a passenger jet, and even that was only a couple deaths compared to the damage to the plane. Extremely safe. When you compare them apples to apples, per mile traveled, planes are way safer. When I drive on the freeway, there are idiots, teenagers, drunks, and people who listen to Coldplay texting and driving at lethal 70 miles per hour speeds within feet of me all the time. Driving is the most dangerous activity most of us do. It's because per distance traveled, you're much less likely to be killed in a plane. It's not raw numbers, planes are still much safer when you control for utility. No, they are statically safer per unit of distance traveled. They are orders of magnitude safer. Not a little bit or even twice as safe. The big difference is that when a plane crashes, the number of deaths are in the hundreds and that grabs people's attention, where globally road deaths are in the hundreds of thousands, but happen in small numbers, except for the odd overloaded bus on a Himalayan or Andean goat trail. Planes really are much safer. Look up the Freakonomics episode about airplane safety, they do a good deep dive, a lot goes into it. Numbers of deaths per 100,000. For the airline industry it's something very small like 0.01. For the auto industry it's around 10 to 15. Some states are higher than 20. Yes, flying is much safer. The sky is not that crowded like a highway. A nearly complete controlled space. Not open for reckless driving beginners. If you travel at high speed, you want to be as far away from anything you can crash into as possible. When was the last you did a full inspection of your car before driving? Airplanes have a team of people inspect it every time before it leaves. A lot more drunks driving than flying. Pilots are better trained. If the roads only had buses and chauffeurs, the roads would be safer. Commercial pilots are better trained. Private pilots are more likely to die than someone driving a car. You don't have to worry about the crazy, drunken flying of other pilots. They're a lot more reliable. And, as you said, very disparately spaced. In addition to incidents being isolated to single plane concerns, each plane has a legally mandated rigorous maintenance and inspection program. It helps when you have a professional doing the driving. Say that you don't understand statistics without saying that you don't understand statistics. I mean, you got a point, but you're in No Stupid Questions. I feel like calling the op dumb, even inadvertently, kinda defeats the purpose of the sub-LMFAO. I'd imagine plane travel would be a lot less safe if every 16-year-old were allowed to be a pilot with only 6 months of training. There are more factors to it. Planes are engineered to a way higher safety standard than cars, because when something goes wrong with a plane it's a huge tragedy. Nearly every idiot is allowed to drive a car. But they don't let anyone fly a plane. Distance traveled is much greater, also aviation tends to change its rules after each incident to try and prevent it happening again. This doesn't typically happen with car accidents. It's a lot more than that. Consider how regulated and redundant the safety for flying is compared to driving a car. Think of all the dumb drivers you've had close calls with between they decided to veer into your lane without warning, or think of the absolute bare minimum rules we have in place to get a license. You have not just more drivers on the roads vs planes in the sky, but the pilots are also leagues better trained compared to your average driver. They are safer. You simply have no concept of math or statistics. There may be no stupid questions, but there are stupid people that ask questions. This is a really good question, but the short answer is no. The most dangerous part of a plane ride is the drive to the airport. In virtually all metrics, per trip, per distance traveled, per operator, driver/pilot, etc., plane travel comes out resoundingly on top for safety. This also accounts for total hashtag of death/injuries. One plane crash is typically weighed more than a car crash, since the hashtag of injured/fatalities is much higher in the former. This is for many reasons, including the much higher safety standards for planes, increased training required for pilots, and more. It depends on how you measure it. Planes are 62 times safer than cars per distance traveled. Planes are 4 times safer than cars using hours traveled. But cars are 3 times safer than planes per individual trip. It's difficult to directly compare the two as they aren't generally used for the same types of trips. Obviously the statistic is deaths per miles traveled to make it comparable. There would be no point to it otherwise. Every idiot is allowed to drive a car. Pilots need years of training and planes also have much tighter regulations than cars. Keep in mind that when there is a car crash, there isn't a large amount of follow-up done since, most of the time, one of the people involved did something wrong. But when there's a plane crash, investigations that go on for weeks/months are carried out to find the exact cause and new systems are put into place to prevent it from happening again. Train travel also is extremely safe, especially for passengers and especially since newer technologies such as PTC which prevent speeds too high for certain curves. Think about it this way. You have a pilot who has trained thousands of hours to get their license flying alongside other pilots who have also trained thousands of hours and designated and coordinated routes. When it comes time to land and take off you have a control tower directing you. Sure, something can still go wrong, but everyone is a professional. Driving a car you're dealing with every idiot and their grandma. Yes, planes are safer than cars. If you are asking why planes are safer, then the answer is because planes are far more regulated. They require 2 professional operators. They are inspected before each flight. Government employees monitor each flight, etc. Deaths are calculated at deaths per 100 million miles traveled. In the US it's 0.01 deaths for planes and it's over 1 for cars. Not to mention the multiple fail-safes that commercial airplanes are required to have. Also there is a crew in a tower tracking each plane, alerting the pilots when it's their turn to land, approach, and take off, which reduces, but sadly does not eliminate, opportunities for fender benders. Came here looking for this. At least op is in the right sub. You just called me an idiot, my friend.